So I hear you're looking for something that has the climbs, terrain, views, challenges, and the characteristics of the Appalachian Trail. You know, something that's good for training. Something that will not only get you physically prepared for a thru hike, but also let you know that you've got what it takes to make it from Springer Mountain to Katahdin. Well, I've got the trail for you. Happy Thursday morning from Virginia. So what does it really take to hike 2,200 miles along the East Coast? The right gear? Maybe. Getting in the best shape possible beforehand? Maybe. Support from family and friends? Definitely. But what it takes more than anything is a never-ending persistence to wake up, put on your pack, and face the challenge that every day brings. And the challenge will be rain, rough terrain, steep climbs, isolation, hunger, and injury, like every single day. So how do you know if you can do this? My suggestion to you is find a mini thru hike that gives you the same challenges as the AT and hike it with the same dedication you would hike the entire AT. So welcome to the Foothills Trail. It's the perfect training ground for thru hiking the AT. So some basics about the Foothill Trail. It is officially 76.6 miles long, and Morpheus, who you might recognize from my AT and PCT hikes,
I'm all for it.
and I hiked it in early May. It goes from Table Rock State Park in South Carolina to Oconee State Park in South Carolina. And this is the first reason it's good for training for the AT, in my opinion. It actually has a start and a finish. You know, both are designated. It helps to have goals. On the AT, you're gonna have hundreds of goals, probably dozens per day. So this trail kind of gets you in that middle state of having distances that you have to tackle every day to get to the end. As you might guess, the Foothills Trail is in the Appalachian foothills of South Carolina. For a short time, it does go into North Carolina around a lake called Lake Jocassee. You actually do walk right past the lake. And with it being in the foothills, you might think it wouldn't be as hard as the AT, you know, smaller mountains and all. Well, you know what? This is actually where the similarities start. According to All Trails, it has 18,274 feet of elevation gain in the 77 miles. There are climbs and climbs and more climbs. There are rock climbs and there are wooden step climbs. There's probably even more wooden steps on the Foothills Trail than on all of the AT in New England, in my opinion. And throughout your thru hike of the Foothills Trail, you'll encounter much of the same terrain as the AT. The Green Tunnel, old Forest Service road walking, swinging bridges,
Stop for a second.
small creek crossings, and that nice rolling terrain that you always dream about on the climbs. And there are blowdowns that you have to navigate. Get used to that for the AT.
Well, my crotch showing.
Speaking of navigating, Gut Hook does not have a map for the Foothills Trail, so keep your eyes on the blazes. Guess what? They're just like the AT. A time or two, you might even think you're hiking the roots of Maine. And there are even a handful of monuments to see along the way.
May 1st, 2020.
We started our hike at Table Rock State Park, which I'll call the eastern end. The terrain on this end is more difficult, but it's also more rewarding. There are beautiful long-range views and steep canyons with rushing rivers and waterfalls. On the western end, kind of levels out to rolling wooded hills, definitely not as steep or strenuous. I think the only type of terrain from the AT that you might not see on this hike are the northern rocks of Pennsylvania, the rolling pastures of Virginia, and the mud of Vermont. That is some good mud right there. Well, there are those things called the whites. You won't see them either. Those will be a nice little surprise when you get to New Hampshire. Water is very plentiful for most of the trail. You'll cross an endless number of little creeks and rivers and waterfalls and all those kinds of things. It's also not a very crowded trail, so camp is usually pretty quiet. There's both designated camping sites and stealth camping sites, but since most of the terrain is pretty steep, there's not as many stealth camping sites, so you'll have to prepare some for where you're going to stop at the end of each day. A bit of logistical information about our hike. Morpheus and I parked our car at Oconee State Park, and we then took a ride to Table Rock State Park with Taz. He's a well-known trail angel for the Foothills Trail. Regrettably, I didn't get a photo of Taz, but you can get his contact information directly from the Foothills Trail website. Taz will shuttle you anywhere along the trail to any of the trailheads. There's probably about four or five nice trailheads for resupply or to jump off the trail if you need to do that. He'll even put out a food stash for you if you don't want to carry a heavy load. After all, a daily part of thru hiking the AT is logistical planning for, mileage, campsites, and especially food.
Turn that thing off.
So our experience in numbers, it took us 4 days to hike from end to end. That's about 19 miles a day. If you're an avid hiker, go out there and knock it out and let me know your fastest known time. I'd love to hear what it is. For me, these 19 miles a day were a killer. It was definitely harder than I expected. For those starting out, I would probably suggest starting on the western end at Oconee State Park and taking maybe about 7 days, maybe even 10. Maybe start slower than, ramp up your daily average miles. If you start on the western end, you'll progress in difficulty as you go, which is very similar to going northbound on the AT. That'll be plenty of time to get some blisters, complain about your pack a little bit and work up some good hiker hunger. Just tell yourself you won't quit. Push yourself the entire 77 miles. Learn your hiking style. Understand your limits. Know how you react in times of stress. Get familiar with your gear. All of those kinds of things. When you get to the end of the Foothills Trail, you will know that you can thru hike the Appalachian Trail. But the feeling of accomplishment will be immeasurably more when you reach the top of Katahdin. I guarantee it. See you guys out there on the trail. Later.